well in a race, I always think of something important called a negative split, which means to run the race basically the same pace all the way through. Ideally, you're running every single mile if it's a flat course at the same pace. So some of my PRs, and these are all for negative splits, are for the 5K I've run a 15:40. For the 15K, my record is a 50:44, which, just to give you an idea what that is, it's 3 repeats, 16:55, 5 days, back to back to back. The last one of that race was actually one of my best races I ever did. And then lastly, in the half marathon, I've run a 1:14. The first half of that was 37:30, the second half, 36:30. So the idea is just to make sure you pace yourself perfectly, which is important for what I'm about to tell you about the marathon. With those times, I should be running about a 2:35 to 2:38 marathon. But I've run 3, and none of them have been anywhere close to that. Best one has been a 2:47, which I actually did here in Florida. I've also run in Boston, where I did a 2:56, and down here again where I did another 2:56. Each time I went out way too fast, and each time I died on the second half. I made the exact same mistake that I used to make in previous races. I had this time in my head where I thought, oh, I want to run this time, I'm fit enough to run this time, I'm going to run this time. And then you go and you do it, and it just doesn't happen. So one thing I want you to take out of today is you'll have this idea of a time you want to run in your head, but pace yourself for where your fitness level actually is. My best example was Boston this past year. I missed about a month with an injury, and I thought, oh, I'm fit enough. It's only a marathon. I can catch up and have no big deal. Worst idea ever for anybody who's ever been up to Boston, where he used to work. Hills everywhere. The first thing starts with a 5-mile downhill, so my hamstrings and quads are already burning for the first 5 miles, and forget it. But you might look at a runner and think, wow, he's so fast, or wow, I'll never be like that. I do the exact same thing. But one thing we have to keep in mind, every time you say that, you're putting a person ahead of you that you can't get to. Instead, think of somebody who's closer to your speed and think, how do I get there? What can I do that they're doing to get there? And that's what I want you to take out of today. I don't want you to look at it and be like, oh, he's a good runner. I appreciate that, and I like that you guys say that to me, but I look at these runners and I think they're amazing. For example, I saw yesterday the female winner for the 10K basically did 2 repeat 14:39 5Ks. If I could run one 14:39 5K, I would be in heaven. By the way, the first half of her race yesterday was faster than our United States record holder. The second half of her race was also faster than our 5K best. So the 2 5Ks she ran back to back were faster than any American has ever done. And she ran a 10K, and she's 24. So keep that in mind. And you might think, okay, well, they were born with it. That's not it. I run thousands of miles. I've run 2,048 miles just this year since January 1st. That's with about 28 days off. So that's averaging over about 10 to 11 miles per day, or now 9 miles per day if we count in the days that I didn't run. They're running 140 to 150 miles per week. So they're pretty much doubling me. They're getting around 4,000 miles to this point. So when they're running these times, it's not necessarily that they're faster. Certainly it helps, but they're putting in all that extra effort. Where I run maybe an hour to an hour 20 per day, they're running 2 hours to 2 hours and 40 per day. They're doing it 3 times a day, and they're really focusing on that kind of stuff. So I know some of you guys are running doubles. I know Mike has definitely done a couple. If not, starting a race, coming and talking, and then going again. A bunch of you guys have. Anybody? Run twice in a day. I can tell you it's one of the best feelings in the world. But this is why I'm telling you. Those runners that you see on the Olympics, and it's important to notice, they've run 30,000 miles by the age of 25. If we could run 30,000 miles in our entire lifetime, that'd be doing something special. But they've run 30,000 miles up to that particular point. So don't think of people think of runners as something that's impossible to get to. It's just they put in all that work up to that point. So it's time for us to kind of work towards it. Second thing, and I wanted to make sure I let you know what I'm going to run through, is I'm going to talk about why I run, why you should run a marathon, what you're going to need on race day for that marathon. And I'm going to talk about some training techniques that I've used and I've taken from professionals that they use. I'll talk about recovery, nutrition, injury prevention, and then lastly, the week before the race. And I'll share some really good advice with you about that week before. That's really going to set you at ease. So we'll just jump back here. The first one is, why should you run? Because it makes you feel good. And that's as simple as it is. My first 5K I ever ran, 26 minutes, 30 seconds. I was so proud of that time. I'd been running for 2 weeks. I ran at 26:30. I just wanted to break 30 minutes. I didn't care. So why do you run? Because it's proof that you put in the work. Every time you go out and run, you build mitochondria in your body, and it literally will stay there and make you a healthier, more fit person. It's easy to think that, we could all get faster, but be proud of what you've done up to this point. You've done some amazing things just to even be here. And the fact that you're sitting in front of me means you want to get better at it. Now think 10 years ago, would you be sitting in front of a person looking for advice? So let's talk about the marathon. So we've all run races. Raise your hand if you've actually run a marathon. Good. So you all have. The marathon, as you guys all know or will know, is a different world. It's not like any other race you've done. I remember running my half marathon and thinking, it's just twice that. Same thing everybody thinks. It's just 2 of those. Back to back, I'll be fine. Piece of cake. You can't fake it. You can't fake 26 miles. You can't say, I'm going to skip all my long runs and just run a marathon. It can't happen. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to run mileage, and that's the key. The key to the marathon is running more miles. If you have a bad marathon, you didn't run enough miles. Period. As much as you want to think that it's the track workouts you missed, it's the shoes, it's the nutrition, the key really is this one, number 4, it's running enough miles. When your plan says 45 miles, that's the minimum. That's what you can do to get the job done. When it says 55 miles, that's the minimum to get a little better. 65, the same thing. A good running plan will have you get up to 85 miles. It will. And some of you will look at me and think, 85 miles? For what, a month? 1 week. 1 week. That's 1 week. I'm 70 miles into this week. I still have to run today. And I have another 3 miles, or 3 weeks of building mileage up to that. And I still know I won't be ready for my marathon coming up in 2 months. I just won't. I'm already behind. And that's something to keep in mind. Your mileage, as you build it up, will help your fitness completely. So, if you don't put in that time, you just honestly won't be successful. One thing that you guys all know is a clothing choice. When you're running these marathons, 2 things happen in Florida. 1, you sweat through everything. So you need a backup pair of clothing. And then 2, when I say sweat through everything, your shoes are absolutely soaked after every run. The biggest mistake you guys can make, and I have made many times, is to put those wet shoes back on. So, these guys know, they sell shoes for a living. They know if you put on a wet shoe, it's going to destroy that rubber and destroy the interior. It's all going to crack. What you should do with your shoes is you should let them rest. Swear to God, put them and air them out somewhere that's not stinky. Grab another pair, buy another pair. Make sure it's the same pair or something similar to it, something you're comfortable in, and wear that. Use that pair, yeah. If you ball up newspaper, stole it. Or if you ball up newspaper and throw it in there, it'll help dry it out. But you're really looking at 2 pairs of shoes. So the biggest recommendation I can have for your outfit is getting 2 pairs of shoes. Another good one is flip belt. Where'd you go? Boom, right there. One of those little guys. The flip belt is perfect because it's 10 to 15 bucks. It's nice and cheap. You can literally fit everything in there and it just wraps around your waist. I'm sorry. Another good one is this piece of equipment. Basically goes around the body part and you can flip it up and then again put something in there. It's good for your keys and things like that. So these are just little cheap things. This was $3 that if you buy it in the right place it's $10 to $20 that you can easily get. And I'm only advocating it because marathon training requires you to do 2 things. 1 is run, but 2 is run long, freaking distances. Because you have to build up your mileage as you go. You're looking at mileage that runs from 13, which we ran today. Congratulations. We woke up at 4 a.m. to run 13 miles. Oh my gosh. I woke up at 6 a.m. just to get ready for this. So 13 miles straight up to around 20 miles or more. So remember that the training plan you have is a minimum plan. It's what you can do to get the job done or where you're at. So if you have a beginning marathon plan that says to get up to 45 miles per week, it says that's the minimum. So if you're missing runs along the way, you realize you're not going to have the results that you hope for. Don't guess a dream time. Grab a Macmillan running calculator, which is what I personally use because it matches every one of my times. It's hit every single time I ever dreamed of up to the half marathon. Literally down to the mile time, it nailed that perfectly straight up to the half marathon time. The only one that it didn't get to was the full marathon. And I can tell you it's because I wasn't drinking. It's the only reason I didn't get there. To stay injury free, no more than 3 workouts per week, Tuesday, Thursday, either Saturday or Sunday. It should be a track workout. For us, it'll be Wednesday. So that's what we do. And then a tempo workout, which the difference between a track workout, which is your intervals on the track, and a tempo is running longer distances without any breaks in between. 3 to 5 miles after a build-up. So you can run 2 miles to warm up, a 3 to 5 mile block, if not more, and then cool down. And then the last one is, of course, your long run, which this is where most people make their mistake. They think long run, I just have to put in the miles. You made a mistake. You want to run your marathon pace plus about a minute. So let's say your marathon pace is 9-minute miles. What should you be running? Bill, you should be running 10. Period. If you're running 11s and 12s and taking breaks and drinking water and going to the bathroom twice, 3 times, and then taking a long time at the very end and then adding on a mile after talking to your friend, you made a mistake. Long runs have to be focused. Your track has to be focused. Your tempo runs have to be focused. You have 4 other days to play with. Do all that other stuff. So those are 3 areas where you have to make sure you're consistent. Because what are you going to do on race day? You're going to stop and talk to your friends? You're going to waste time trying to wake up Bill? No, you're not going to do that. Similarly, you're not going to do, and this is another training technique, you're not going to go to the bathroom 3 to 4 times. You won't talk yourself into it, but you do it in training. You're not going to go ahead and stop and hang out for 2 minutes drinking a bottle of water. When you do that in training, you're not going to eat a weird meal before you start running, but you do that in training. So that's the problem, is what you do in training is what your body expects during that day. So if you go into a race and you're like, that was the worst race I've ever had, I don't understand, I was very trained. What you probably did was train yourself to believe in that you needed to stop every half mile for a glass of water. You needed to go to the bathroom 3 times. You needed to have a special breakfast. Maybe you drank coffee before every training session, and then you got to race day and you didn't drink coffee. Well, believe it or not, coffee has a drug. It's a famous drug called caffeine. The moment you stop giving your body caffeine, it works the same as any addiction. It's going to cause headaches, and your body's going to get really mad at you because it wants caffeine. It does, and that happens with food in kind of the same way. If you don't have something that you normally had, and then race day comes or race week comes, and you just cut it out, you've made a mistake. So one of the best training techniques I have is to practice what you plan on doing, particularly on the long run. The long run. The last one is, and I'm going to deal with the long run again because it's the most important one, is you have to do a long run of at least 2 hours. 2 hours is where we really want to get to, if not past that, to 3 hours. Because what happens at 2 hours of good training, marathon pace plus 1 minute, if not marathon pace, is right at 2 hours, 90% of people who are trained will run out of their glycogen stores if you haven't been eating food and trying to suppress it. Here's what that means. Glycogen stores are when sugars in your cells are basically helping your body move. When they deplete, your body switches fuel sources. It doesn't have like a switch. It'll switch to fat, which takes a lot more energy. It doesn't give you as much energy as glycogen does. So your body will literally slow down about 15%. And it's called hitting the wall, but it's not a wall that you think of. So raise your hand if you've ever hit the wall. So you all know, because you've already trained your dad, that 50% feels terrible. But you're going to try to do what? It's the one thing that you'll try to do because you want to hit that time. Say it again. You're going to want to push through it. Why is that a bad idea? Let's imagine you had a car and you fed the car gas. The car ran out of gas. So your body decided to mix gas with a little bit of water. And then you decided to keep going, trying to go at the same speed. The car's not going to like that. The car's going to maybe survive another mile, and then it's trying to run on a fuel that's definitely not as efficient. So one thing to help practice with that long run is to try to get past that time so you know what it feels like. Which brings me to nutrition and recovery. So nutrition as you're running, and this is something that I've never done perfect, but I know a lot of people who have that perfect. But here, they recommend that you have about a sports drink every 15 minutes. When I say a sports drink, it's not necessarily Gatorade. Gatorade actually has a lot of negative reviews about it. It does. Really, they're looking for any isotonic, which is basically something that has the same pressure as your body fluid. Isotonic that has calories in it, so simple carbs, and likely salts. So you want salts in there to replenish with your water. So the negative reviews dealt with, there's some that deal with the food coloring, which I don't know much about, but one of my other coaches kind of talks about. The thing that bothers me about it is it causes me to cramp, particularly because my body absorbs it so quickly that my cells aren't really ready for it. So I have to water it down a ton, in my particular opinion. So it's not necessarily the drink itself, it's the concentration of the drink, in my opinion. But I do have the information here, and I can send you the link to my study.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I got it.
I never
I'll
heard
send
of
it.
any negative reviews for Gatorade.
I got you. The other one is the goos and the things that we have. You know, I saw them in here at some point. Up front. Those are basically a more dense version of the drink. You have to take them with water. That's what they're made for. Don't, for the love of God, take a goo without water, because it just will sit there, right here. I know where it sits because it sat there before. It'll sit right here in your chest. You want those once every 45 minutes to try to slow down that depletion. So the nice thing about the goos, and ideally I'd recommend this for those of you guys who are coffee drinkers, is it has caffeine in it. One of the things you're going to want to do on race day is try to eat very well. Well, that means you're going to want to make sure you go to the bathroom. And what's the one thing that makes you go to the bathroom? Coffee, caffeine, basically anything like that. Particularly diuretics, for all reasons do that. So here, there's caffeine in it. There's a smaller amount, much smaller amount than what's in coffee. Some coffees, those of you guys who like really dark, thick coffee, have incredible amounts. If you like Starbucks, raise your hand. Liars, where are you?
I'm sorry, I don't like it.
They have an insane amount of caffeine. It's a ton. It's over 100 milligrams in some of them, I believe. But another thing I want to talk about with the nutrition stuff was that stuff, you got to just find what works for you. Period. If it's not working for you, it's causing you to have cramps like it did with me, you want to try something different. One I tried on my most recent marathon was, instead of having any of that stuff, I ate a bigger breakfast and I switched to water and a salt mixture. So there's like these little salt licks that you guys can get. That works too. So the nutrition stuff is just what works for you. Now let's talk about nutrition pre-run. Pre-run, you want something like oatmeal cereal, something that's nice and easy, bland, that you can eat. If you have coffee, drink coffee. Water, always drink water beforehand. I usually like to do a ripe banana. During the run, you're good for any run up to 2 hours without any nutrition at all. Let me say that again. You're good for 2 hours on any and every run, as long as you have been eating well during the day, without any nutrition at all. No Gatorade. You don't need that during the run. You don't need a goo during the run. You won't have to stop for any type of food. That is one of the things that is stressful to a lot of people, because they like that feeling of having something there on them, whether it be on their belt, having Gatorade, or having goo with them. Particularly bike riders run through this problem because they do 4 or 5 hours, so they're so used to having food and things on them. But if it's less than 2 hours, I'd recommend practicing with nothing. Because then the worst that happens is you work on running on fat as opposed to glycogen. Post-run, this is where you want to have your protein. Protein can only really be absorbed with carbohydrates. That's a big problem because although protein absolutely helps your muscle recover, it has to be about a 4-to-1 ratio with carbohydrates to help the absorption process. So if you plan on having eggs, you got to plan on having granola. If you plan on having chocolate milk, you should plan on having some sort of banana or maybe toast with it. Basically, you want to make sure you have a 4-to-1 ratio. Second thing is you have to have it within an hour. Really, earlier the better, as soon as possible. Something with protein. Protein literally will help your body rebuild itself. When I say within an hour, I really mean within an hour. I mean, yes, you're going to look at food and be like, I don't want to eat that. I just ran 3 hours. How many of you have ever felt that way? I know I have. The last thing I want to do is eat. The last thing I ever want to do after a marathon is look at food. But there it is, pancakes and eggs, or whatever the heck they're having. You have to have some protein. You have to have some carbs. 4-to-1. So again, too much protein inhibits the absorption. Lastly, if you're looking to lose weight, and this deals with the nutrition too, the marathon is not your friend. It's not. I know, and I look around you, you guys are like me. You think, oh, we're going to run all these miles, we're going to lose weight, we're going to look great. You're making a mistake because you're building up all these miles, all these hours of working out. Your body needs food. It does. You're not sitting around and working on a diet. So you have to get those calories in. If, though, you just disregarded that message, I understand, but you have to realize something. The only way you're going to lose weight while marathon training is if you count calories, which is one of the hardest things you could possibly do. It took me a year out of my life to learn how to count calories well. I can do it now. I can just look at a food and pretty much know what's in it. But if you want to lose weight, that's the only way because your body is just going to crave it all of the time. All of the time. So some of the things you can work at to help on those weight choices are just having water and vegetables available to you all the time. Water and vegetables, because vegetables, particularly vegetables like celery, they don't really have a lot of calories in them. Celery actually has almost no calories by the time it's done being processed through your body, but it has a lot of water and nutrients. Another thing you can't do is you cannot skip breakfast. You can't do it. You can't do that 2-meal a day thing that some of you guys are doing, that my mom does, and then she tries to go for a run and she wonders why it's horrible. Don't do it. You can't go to work without eating breakfast, eat lunch, and have it be like a half sandwich or whatever it is, and then expect to have a good run in the afternoon. Instead, take whatever huge dinner you were going to do, cut it in half, have it at breakfast. If anything, it's going to have your metabolism speed up. It's going to be the exact opposite of what you thought. You thought you were cutting on a meal and cutting on calories. No, you're causing your body to literally slow itself down, its digestive system, and instead, at the very end, get a ton of food, and it's going to think, well, I get starved every morning, so I'm going to go ahead and try to store this food in my body as what? Fat. Yay. Which is exactly what we were trying to avoid. All right, next one, injury prevention is all the stuff we've been doing. We know all the dynamic stretches we've been doing. You want to do hurdler exercises where you're coming in and out, ideally before and after every run. You're going to want to do calories. No sneezing. Not a lot. You want to do one-legged squats coming straight down like this. The reason is it helps your patellar tendon right here. Regular squats also work. Foot circles allows you to loosen up your ankles. Notice everything is a movement. It's not just me stretching directly across. Don't pull on your muscles either because you're literally pulling them off the bone. You don't want that. Another thing with injury prevention is you gotta work out. You gotta either do body weight exercises like push-ups, you have to do planks, you have to do side planks, you have to do these types of things to keep your body in check. Because running, unfortunately, especially in Florida, is only working a set group of muscles. It's not working every huge group. Now, one of my favorites. You're gonna like this. The week before the race. Here are some of the cool things about it. One, the week before the race, everybody thinks, oh, I'm in taper mode. This is easy. I get to basically eat the same amount of food. You should. You should be getting more calories than you've ever gotten based on the amount of work you've been doing. And it's going to be really easy, and I'm going to feel great on every run. You won't. You'll feel terrible on every single run. You'll feel absolutely horrible. Well, I'll be feeling really ready and proud of myself for completing all that work beforehand. You won't. You'll feel like you didn't do enough. And you'll feel terrible. You just will. And then, number 4 will be that one that jumps into your head. It's called depression. It'll happen. It literally will come into your head. After all that work you just did, you'll be literally depressed because you haven't been running and you don't think you're going to accomplish this goal. Guess what? Every single marathoner feels that. Those 4 things I just told you were from Med Keflezighi. You know, the guy who won the Boston Marathon. That's what he thought. Those 4 things. He also thought one more thing after that race. I'm not going to run for 2 more weeks. He took 2 weeks off. Gained 15 pounds instead. You can understand why that man did that. But I always thought that was interesting when I saw him at Gasparilla this past February. You want to make goals. There are 3 goals you want to make. One's your A goal. It's that crazy goal you have in your head. You shouldn't reach it. If you reached it, it wasn't a good enough goal. Your B goal is really the goal you're ready for. It's the one you put in the Macmillan calculator and you put your training next to, and you kind of put them both together. It's the one that basically you've been training all your paces at. It feels comfortable, that kind of thing. Your C goal is the simple one. Maybe you just want to complete the marathon. Guess what? That's pretty often my C goal. To complete the marathon and to push myself along the way. So you want to have 3 goals and you want to make them attainable. You got to stick to your race plan. So, and you also have to stick to your same foods. Whatever you ate coming up to the race is what you're going to eat. Whatever you wore coming up to the race is what you're going to wear. Whatever shoes you wore, for the love of God, don't change your shoes. Don't put on racing flats. We're not professionals. We don't need that. Putting on a racing flat, and I have those shoes back there, and we have a couple right here. They're wonderful, wonderful shoes, but they don't have a lot of cushion. How many miles are you running? 26. You're probably doing 27, if not more, because you have a stupid walk up to the beginning of about 1.5 miles. Like in every single marathon. Why not, if we just need more walking, right? So you want to wear shoes that are comfortable. Just wear the same ones you've been training with. Just make sure they're dry.
And not new shoes either.
Never,
you should
never,
have
ever.
about 25 to 50 miles on the shoes you're going to use.
Absolutely, 100% correct. And also not shoes that are worn on the bottom. These guys can definitely help you out with that. You can tell here, my shoes are very, very worn here at the front, but they're not worn through because you can see the grooves here in the inside. So technically, the shoe is still okay up here at the front. Notice it's worn evenly on both sides. If one side is worn more than the other, you're going to want to choose a different pair. So wearing through your shoes is another one. You can also tell when a shoe basically breaks, which is between 300 and 500 miles, depending on the type of shoe you have. Immediately, it feels like it loses all its cushioning. It's because it has. The rubber will literally crack at sometimes. Okay. Last one for that one is you got to run the first 2 miles of that race slower. But it's not for the reason most of you think. You probably think it's because I said negative splits. No. How have you been training? What's the first thing you do every time you train? You gotta warm up. And that's where your warm-up's gonna be. You're not gonna run 2-3 miles before a marathon. Even pro marathoners won't do that. Put it in your marathon. Put the first 2 miles as your warm-up. Count that into your time. Expect it to happen. It's just there. So make sure you add a minute or 2 to whatever time you were hoping to, because it's right there. You've been doing it the entire training process. It can't just go away. That's another huge mistake. Yeah.
Plus, you're going to be dealing with foot traffic anyway.
Yeah, and you'll be in the walking traffic anyway. You just did a huge walk up. Your legs are going to feel weird because you've been using different muscle groups walking up to that start line and standing there like a sardine forever. So yeah, if anything, you're going to need a longer warm up than you're used to. 2 miles, 2.5 miles. You'll feel like crap from mile 0 to mile 2 anyway. You'll just be excited. And the bathroom breaks. Guess what? If you plan or if you've used bathrooms throughout your training during runs, you're going to have to go to the bathroom during the run. If you have to pee or poop, sorry, poor language, before every single run, the moment you get to the marathon and you don't go to the bathroom beforehand, you are in trouble. If you did it right before or right after you had coffee in the morning and then you went out for your run, if you have coffee, you drive to a race, you're going to feel horrible until it happens. You got to follow that same process. Can't emphasize that one enough. All right, our last one. What to remember about the training process. You got to trust your plan, especially the plan that came out too. You'll think you can't run the 26.2. You can. I promise you, you can. You'll think you can't right up to mile 25. On race day, remember a couple of things. As you're training, you're going to tell yourself you can't do it, but you're running on something called accumulated fatigue. For example, every time I go into a workout on a Tuesday, Thursday, or Sunday, I have all the work up to that week. I have 70 miles this week coming into today. I'm going to run 20 miles tomorrow. I'll probably run 10 today. So I'll have 80 miles going into a 20-miler tomorrow. I'm not going to have that on race day. I'm going to instead have 15 miles, maybe a couple of them short little sprints. I'll have tons of food in me, great sleeping patterns, etc. And second to last one, my personal favorite rule is this one. If you sleep really well at the beginning of the week leading up to the race, the night before the race, you cannot sleep a wink, but you'll be absolutely fine. Meaning that nervousness you get the night before the race and you're up to 2 a.m., 3 a.m. later, it's not going to hurt you. And that's one of my favorite bits of advice, and I use it in my race experience. I've done many a race where I have been very, very nervous, and I'm sure you guys have too, and you perform just fine. You may feel terrible, but as long as you slept well the nights before, ate well the nights before, and drink a lot of water up to that point, you'll be absolutely 100% successful.